Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Michaela, and if you clicked on this video, it's likely that either you are thinking about starting antidepressants or there's someone that you love that is thinking about starting them. I actually have been taking antidepressants for about 3 years now. I started right after I graduated college, and I thought now would be a great time to share 5 things that I wish I personally knew before I started my antidepressant journey. I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm not going to be speaking from a medical standpoint. Everything that I'm going to be sharing has just been my personal experience learning about myself and the medication over the past few years. So I don't have a whole lot to introduce about this video, so without further ado, here are 5 things that I wish I knew before I started antidepressants. So the first thing that I wish I knew before I started antidepressants is definitely the cost and how expensive it can be. Especially in the first few months as you're getting your medication dosage figured out, it can definitely stack up some bills in your bank account. So in the very beginning, you're going to do an intake appointment, and that appointment is where they kind of talk to you for a longer time and figure out what you're dealing with, and that appointment can run you anywhere between $250 and $300. That is just the assessment appointment, so they can pinpoint kind of what's going on with you and give you a diagnosis. After that, they'll likely prescribe you your medication, and they will require you to come back every 2 weeks to every 4 weeks after that in order to do a follow-up visit, just to make sure that your medication and everything is on the right level. Those follow-up visits can run you anywhere between $120 and $160 per visit, and your psychiatrist will likely start you on a very low dose of whatever medication they put you on. Those first few months are definitely the most expensive part of this whole journey. Kind of going into the cost of all this, I was also kind of shocked to see how all of this works and plays into insurances. So there are a lot of providers that I've noticed either don't accept insurance or they are just not in network with my insurance. That being said, I felt like it was a bit of a challenge for me to find a provider that accepted my insurance that also I felt like I could resonate with. It was pretty important for me to find another Black woman because I felt like that was just who I could relate to the most and who would be able to kind of understand me and the things that I'm dealing with. I went through the portal on my insurance company's website and was looking for a Black female provider in my area and could not find a single one. So that is definitely a challenge when it comes to just finding someone that'll resonate with you that also will not cost you an arm and a leg. At this point right now, I am just paying completely out of pocket and not using my insurance because they are not accepting my insurance, but I felt like she was the best fit for me, so that was the doctor I went with. But if you're someone that does need to use your insurance, you might be a little bit more limited in terms of who you're able to see, but I would definitely recommend choosing someone that you feel like you would resonate with before you just look at the cost of the appointments. So the next thing I wish I knew before I started antidepressants is how they would work for me. So I was a little worried before I started them that they would turn me into like a completely different person, and that is not the case at all. I would say that antidepressants really just make you the best version of yourself. So for me, I had been struggling with my symptoms of anxiety and depression pretty much since puberty, so that was all I really knew as an adult. I remember when I first started my antidepressants, I would liken it to being like a colorblind person who was seeing in color for the first time. So that first time putting on those glasses that lets you see the world the same way that everyone else sees it. That being said, I definitely was really happy with how it was helping my anxiety symptoms, but if you're an overthinker, it is definitely not going to help with that. So the antidepressants will definitely help with those physical anxiety symptoms that you're feeling, so like tightness in your chest, that bad feeling in your stomach, all of that type of stuff. But if you're someone like me whose brain is always just turning a million miles a minute, it's probably not going to stop that. That is more something that I feel like you need to go to therapy for and just learn different coping mechanisms on how to like deal with your thoughts and all of that type of stuff. But I would say that it definitely helps with the physical symptoms that you're feeling, but it will not help with overthinking if you're an overthinker. And it also is not going to change you into this completely different person. If anything, it'll just make you the best version of yourself that you already are. The third thing that I wish I knew before I started antidepressants is that you can't just stop taking your medication or else you will get brain zaps. Brain zaps are basically just your brain withdrawing from the lack of medication, so it'll give you this sensation of your brain almost like a shock feeling, like a staticky feeling, and that occurs for me typically if I go more than 3 or 4 days without taking my medication. It definitely varies person to person and depends on how high your medication level is, but for me, once I hit that 3 or 4 day mark without taking my medication, I start getting that disorienting feeling in my brain of just like, I would almost describe it as if, I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about with those old school TVs where if you used to touch it, it would have that kind of staticky feeling to it. You get that over your brain, it lasts around 2 or 3 seconds, and it can occur like anytime from multiple times an hour to like every other hour to like more time in between. But you definitely do have to take your medication consistently in order to avoid having those issues. But that was something that definitely shocked me, especially the very first time I got them. I was like, what is going on? I was getting these weird feelings in my brain. I was feeling a little bit disoriented. It can also be a challenge if you're driving. I would say that that is probably the scariest part. When you're driving, you get brain zaps. It just kind of makes everything feel like it's stopping for a second or two. But I definitely would recommend just taking your medication consistently to avoid having those issues. But that is the number one side effect that I've dealt with that I felt like really shocked me when I first dealt with it. So the fourth thing that I wish I knew before I started antidepressants, and I'm not going to go too in depth with this one, but sexual side effects are actually extremely common when you're taking SSRIs. So the way that I'll just kind of describe it is that if my anxiety is numb, then I'm probably numb below the belt too. I would honestly say that being on the medication, I almost feel kind of asexual, like I'm not really attracted to anyone or anything, and I don't have that kind of sexual attraction or like desire to engage in anything like that. I will say that the opposite is true if you just go off of your medication. I personally have not had too many issues with the side effect just because it's not a huge issue in my life right now, but I can imagine that if you're in a relationship and that is something that you're having an issue with your partner, then I would definitely recommend just talking to your doctor about it, because I've actually pretty much anyone that I've talked to that does take an SSRI does have that sexual dysfunction side effect. So if it's something that's really bothering you, it might be best to try a different type of medication. But if you are taking an SSRI, be prepared to be dead below the belt. So the very last thing that I wish I knew before I started antidepressants is that you do not have to take them forever. If you get to a point where you decide that you don't want to take them anymore, you can definitely work with your doctor to taper yourself off of them. I actually have been on and off of mine. I actually did stop taking them for a few months when I moved back to Virginia, just because when you live in a different state, you do have to switch your provider to a doctor within your state. So during that transition, I ended up going off of my medication for a while, and the world did not end. I'm not some crazy person, like it wasn't like the end of the world for me. I personally do feel like antidepressants for me are almost like a safety net, so for that reason I do think that I will be taking them for the time being. I just feel like they make me function a lot better as a human, and I feel like I'm a lot more pleasant too when I'm on them. So for those reasons, I feel like it is in my best interest to keep taking them. But if you ever get to a point where you just feel like you don't need them anymore, or you feel like it's just not helping you the way that they should be, you can just talk to your doctor. They can either switch you to a different medication or they can help you taper off of it. I just would definitely recommend tapering yourself off of it as opposed to going cold turkey, because if you go cold turkey, like I mentioned before, you're going to deal with some of those negative side effects like brain zaps and things like that, which are not fun to deal with. I will say that on the flip side of that, there can come a time where you do feel like your medication dosage does need to be upped. That did happen to me at one point back when I was living in North Carolina, so I was dealing with kind of a tough time, and my medication dosage actually ended up tripling within about a 1.5 year time period. Just dealing with some stuff in my life, and then I was able to bring my medication dosage back down to a normal quote-unquote level once I was able to feel a little bit better. But I would definitely expect for your medication dosage to fluctuate as you are on the medication. Dealing with better times, you might not need it as much, and if you're dealing with harder times, you might need to up your dosage. But overall, I feel like it has just been a really great thing in my life, and I'm really happy that I started them. Alright guys, well those are all of the 5 things that I wanted to share with you guys about what I wish I knew before I started antidepressants. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, and if there was anything that shocked you as well, be sure to drop that in the comments below. I'll have more sit-down videos like this coming up in the future, so be sure to subscribe to my channel, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye guys!